Welcome to the Moser On Manufacturing podcast, brought to you by Jacket Media Co.
I'm just wild about Harry, and Harry's wild about me. The heavenly blizzard.
Good afternoon, everyone, on Cyber Monday, 3 days after Thanksgiving, and I'm here with Harry Moser, who's with Reshoring Initiative. Sorry, Harry, Reshoring Initiative, and we're going to be on a whole different story today. So, Harry, what's going to be different about our show today?
Well, normally I tell you about something that has directly to do with reshoring. And this time I thought we'd try something a little different. And specifically, a few months ago, I spoke at and attended a fall meeting of the Forging Industry Association. That's FIA, Forging Industry Association. So the association of contract manufacturers like job shops that make forgings. Also, a few of the members are OEMs, so big companies that make forgings to go into their end product, whatever it is, and it was a very interesting group, and I know that you're in the forging industry in your day job, and so I wanted to tell a little bit about what I learned at this meeting, and so that our listeners could understand something about forging, both as an industry and perhaps as a career, because I know the industry is looking for good people to join them and have a successful career in forging.
So let's see what you learned at FIA conference. I've been doing it now for over 50 years, so I'm not going to tell you what the story is. I'm not telling anybody. You learned by going to the FIA. So let's start with what happened at the conference. What was that all about?
You know, the FIA is a sponsor of the Reshoring Initiative, which I'm very grateful to them for that, because they know that as reshoring happens, there'll be more forging business. Their members will be busier, the association will be bigger, and all that kind of thing. And so we have a natural affinity. Had this conference on September 25 to 27. So that's about 2 months ago, and it was 2 days in Nashville. And the conference was very good for information and for contacts, but also Nashville was hopping at night. I mean, I was working, but they had us one day at something Big Red or something like that, and there's just people dancing and singing and loud music and drinking. I mean, it wasn't anything like home, So I felt like I was in New Orleans on Mardi Gras. So it really was quite something. They had 58 registrants, as I said, Ford shops, a few OEMs, and a number of suppliers. So I think most of the suppliers were from the steel industry, because obviously a lot of what's forged is steel, although you and others do certainly other materials. And so they had these especially steel companies, maybe aluminum companies, that supplied them with their raw material that they forge. And one of the attendees was the president of Trenton Forging in Trenton, Michigan, and they were co-winners of the 2021 National Metalworking Reshoring Award. And I'm hoping that Lew, your company, All Metal, will apply for that award. I'd love to be here celebrating with you your winning that award.
Well, there's always next year.
Okay, but I'm going to keep reminding you.
I know, I got that. The agenda of the conference.
Okay.
I think it's important for our audience to hear about.
Yeah, I've got to stop for just a second. Let me dig that up. Because it doesn't show here. It should. Okay, here we go. What do you think? Any sign of it coming up? I clicked on it and tried again. A pain in the ass.
Why don't you explain to us what FIERA, FIERA,
Oh, yeah.
is?
So, can you see that slide? Can,
Yes,
okay, let's just go through the slide. So there's the Forging Industry Association, that's FIA, and then they have an allied group, Women in Forging, because there's especially in manufacturing, we tend to be, I don't know what, 80% male, something like that, and especially in sort of traditional heavy industries like forging, heavily male dominated, and bringing more women into the industry is always seen as a good way to expand the workforce and provide great opportunities for the women. So that's sort of a part of the same group. You can see the logo is about the same, and then they have FIRF, I guess, which is the Forging Foundation. So it's a nonprofit that does good work, and I suspect a lot of that is in terms of skilled workforce. You know, that they're doing things to help
right.
get colleges, universities, community colleges training in forging, so there'll be a workforce flowing into the companies.
Let's go back. So, about women in forging. I've been in forgings, I don't know, 50 years, and I don't a whole lot of women in forge shops. So, uh, give me a little back. When did that started changing, and what kind of percentage do we have today of women in the forging industry?
Now, I have no idea, honestly, but there are
Okay,
there's must be a dozen groups about women in manufacturing. There's one Alison Grialis started that spun out from Precision Metal Forming Association, Women in Manufacturing, and they have big conferences with hundreds of women coming out to discuss manufacturing, but also how women can help each other succeed in manufacturing. And,
right,
so there's a it's generally agreed there's especially a shortage of uh, male workers for most jobs because they're in prison or they have problems or drugs or who knows what. Too many of them that we've lost to the workforce, and women are a good alternative. So I'm I believe that the women have picked up a greater percentage, but still, especially in forging, I'm sure it's a very small percentage, which is an opportunity for them to do better. Here, let me go down to the next slide here, if I can make this.
mm-hmm.
Yeah, let's see down here. Okay.
You've got some graphics to show us regarding steel and aluminum and
Yeah,
metric. So
yeah.
why don't you give us kind of a look-see? There you go.
Here's the next slide. So one of the things that they were was a very hot topic at the conference was uh, tariffs, and Trump put on tariffs on steel and aluminum, which are still in place, and there's a lot of talk about a carbon tariff. So that product that was being imported would have a tariff put on it proportional to the amount of CO2 that was involved in making that product, and that can be much higher in some other countries like China because a lot of the CO2 comes from the use of electricity to melt the metal and form it and so on. And the electricity in China is, I don't know, 70% maybe generated with coal, whereas in the US maybe 25% is generated with coal. So for every kilowatt hour of electricity, there's a lot more CO2 emitted in a country like China than there is in the US. So there'll be eventually apparently be a tariff that'll be based on that carbon, and that'll make countries that are getting away cheap by using coal instead of being more climate conscious, that'll make them less competitive than they are today. But that's nobody expects that immediately. They hope to have something happening next year, and there's a lot of concern about excess imports of steel, aluminum, et cetera, especially from China. So they're always trying to get China to stop dumping all of its excess capacity. A lot of talk about Mexico. So Mexico is when companies think about how to have wages about like China, but closer to the U.S. and without the geopolitical risk, that tends to pop up Mexico as a logical place to go. And you can see here different industries and some of the major brands that have been there, and the rate of increase in the U.S. imports from that other country. And you can see they're quite impressive. Doubling in 9-10 years, something like that. Mexico has its problems also, crime, corruption, violence kind of thing, but it's close. The people are hardworking. They're doing a pretty good job of training them, and although my effort is always to bring as much work to the U.S. as I can, if you cannot get it here, if the economics just make it impossible, I'd rather have the work in Mexico than in China, because product coming out of Mexico has about 40% U.S. content, whereas product coming out of China has about 5% U.S. content. So by getting the work to Mexico, you pick up sort of half a loaf. Here's another interesting topic. This fellow, Chuck Matthews, talked about cyber risk. And you read articles about it all the time. You see headlines, companies settling for $100 million to get their software working again. And so Chuck talked about, sort of practical things that companies could do to deal with that issue. And specifically, he had some interesting data in various industries on the average cost of a cyber breach. And I'm not sure whether it's how much they paid the bad guys or the damage that was done and the lost sales and things like that, but millions and millions of dollars per event in various industries, and manufacturing is on its way up. It's becoming more of a target all the time, and especially as we've gone to Internet of Things and Industry 4.0, and you have all the machines and all the computers all connected together and all hooked up to the internet. Now you've created a possible great gateway for the bad guys to get in and create either safety issues or shut down your equipment, and then you've got to figure out how to get it all going again. So it can be a long time, a lot of money. So as a result of hearing this presentation, I went out and bought software for my laptop that would be better than the normal software and would help to keep me from being attacked. There was a lady who talked about skilled workforce and recruitment and so on, a very hot topic. And she said what she says here. It's if your employees are not engaged, or if they are engaged, if they're working with somebody they like, then it takes a big pay increase to get them. Whereas if they're not engaged, you can get them for almost nothing, almost no increase over what they're making. So a strong emphasis on keeping the workforce working together as a team, seeing benefit of working together, and as a result, you have happier people, and they're much more likely to stay with you. The same lady, I think, presented this: be a leader worth following. And her theory was be you, be present. She says be unexpected. I'm not sure what that means. I guess it means not boring, but I think it makes sense. I had a boss. I used to work at National Acme Gridley screw machines, so big machine tools. And I reported to the president, and his theory was that a good leader, that people will follow a leader who they believe it is in their interest to follow. So if they think if I'm their leader, and if they think I'm going to lead them to the promised land, and the company's going to make lots of money, and they're going to get promoted, and they're going to get bonuses, then I'm a good leader, and they're going to follow me. Whereas if they think I'm leading them over the cliff, then I'm not a good leader. Just maybe a slightly different perspective on this, but right. If people believe you're taking them to where they want to go and where something's going to be good for them, I think that's a good measure of leadership.
During the conference, did they go into? I mean, we have a lot of people listening did they go at all into the various forging processes? Excuse me. And is that something you can address, or you want to share that?
Forging processes, are you saying, or forging customer industry?
Forging process.
Okay, you know more about that. I was going to ask you about that because because
Oh,
because
okay.
you're
Well,
you've been doing it for 50 years, and I've been talking about it for half an hour. So you
I don't know. These hands haven't done a whole lot of forging, but that being said, the forging process um, is multiple, and we have what they call open die forgings, which is and clear that there's no die, and that there is a forging hammer that will forge a particular shape, and you're moving the part until you get a near shape that you will ultimately be able to machine into a final part. The biggest part, or one of the biggest parts of the industry, are the seamless rolled rings, uh,
yeah. So
which is,
let me go back to the open die. Would that be
yeah,
in fact similar to the blacksmith?
yeah,
Very similar to this blacksmith. He's got a piece of metal he's holding, and with a tongs of some kind, and he's got a hammer and it's hot, and he's pounding it with a standard tool to get it into the shape he wants it to be. And that's so functionally that's similar to open die. Is that fair?
that's correct. That is, and going back to rings, there are two ways to produce a ring. One is where it's basically almost an open die, where you forge a slug of material, punch a hole, and then forge until you get to a near shape. However, the more efficient is what they call a seamless rolled ring, where they have a roll machine that will actually spin and through uh, the force of energy going out can make these parts round and have a grain flow and better grain direction than you might as an open die forging. So, for example, the gear industry is very big in using seamless rolled, where you get the proper grain and you get the proper grains and so on to make it a stronger, more efficient product used in machinery, transportation, so on, where you need high strength and sustainability of a product. So those are two of the major components with regards to forgings. But then you have others like closed die forgings, where they'll actually make a die and you hammer these parts and it'll stamp out a, they call it closed die part, where you have a lot less machine and you have a lot less uh, issues with a part that has a particular shape. So this has been the way the forging industry has grown over the years. It doesn't seem like it's a really high tech industry, but it has come so in different view of technology than you might in terms of, for example, 3D printing. That's very high. Uh, but seamless rolled rings, you save a lot of money on material, machining, machine time, waste, and also machine wear and tear on equipment that has to machine the forgings, the seamless. So it's a very complex industry. You have metallurgy is not. I mean, it's almost like chemistry, but it's not. It's metallurgy, and it works real well in many of the industries we're in today, including aerospace, transportation, machinery builders, so on.
But generally, my understanding is that one reason you forge is that you're able to, by working the metal, you're able to create a stronger, tougher product than you would with a basic piece of steel. You can take a piece that has a certain level of properties, and by forging it, you can raise those properties so that the product will be longer lasting or able to deal in a rougher environment than you would otherwise. Is that fair?
Absolutely, absolutely. For example, with a rolled ring, spinning that ring between rollers, rollers on top, rollers on the ID, you're getting a much stronger grain structure, and more so than if you, for example, forged a and then punched a hole and cut the corners and so on, going only in one direction. This you have a circumventional grain, which makes it much stronger.
Okay. Yeah, without forgings, most of the tough jobs wouldn't get done. So it's good that we have you and the rest of the industry. How tell me, I had some statistics first that I picked up from the FIA website that there's about 250 companies in the industry in North America, maybe 300 plants. So some of the companies have multiple plants. Annual sales about 6 billion. That's with a B, $6 billion per year. 45,000 employees. So that means that the average plant has maybe 150 people, but it probably ranges from 25 or 50 up to 1,000 or something like that in terms of size. So small company to relatively big companies. So I had another slide I wanted to bring up if I can. Here, let me get to
Well,
this.
you're doing that, to your point about the 300 or so forging manufacturing plants here in the United States. I think it's to know that, take for example, China, 6,000 forge shops.
6,000.
6,000.
So
And
20 times as many.
I'm sorry?
20 times as many as we have in the US.
And they can make certain parts that cannot be made in the United States. Some are so large, so big, and so, hey, there's Salt Metals and Forge Crew. Oh, thanks, Harry.
So since I'm talking about forgings and I went to this meeting, and
that sort of looks like you just made an, but that's okay. At least it wasn't one of my competitors. While this is up, I want to say that we do have 8 to 10 mostly week deliveries on our forging, but I don't want to get into.
Yeah, I'm the one who brought it up, but I'm sure it's a great company. How many employees, Lew?
We got 35.
Okay.
And most of them are with 20, 30 years. They're really skilled people. And we're now looking, one of the problems or one of the issues that manufacturing industries have today is that people are getting older, and we need new talent. And going to college may not be to get into the forging industry, but you can make a lot more money in forging industry than as a social worker with an MBA. is kind of a dirty, dangerous environment, but they can in maintaining safety, but it is uh, it's not working in a lab. Let's put it that way.
How loud is it?
Well, that's one of the problems with Ford shops is that uh, it's very loud, it's very hot, and unfortunately, a lot of people wind up hearing problems and so on. But today they have very good ear muffs to block the sound. Been many who have lost hearing as a result, but today it has gotten better.
Yeah, no, good. No. So, career opportunities. If someone comes right out of high school, how would they get started?
Well, first of all, coming right out of high school, you to an apprentice program somewhere. Uh, going to going to is wonderful, but you're going to wind up owing $1,000 a year, and a lot of the universities, your ROI on investment in a college is no more than 20% of the cost of the college. So going into manufacturing, and Tim Grady, who's a co-host on my show, we talk a lot about the fact that um, you need to um, you need to understand the value going into the manufacturing workplace. And uh, when you go into manufacturing workplace and you do an apprenticeship, you might be in an apprenticeship for 2 years or 3 years or 5 years. You're going to be making a lot of money, and I'll give you one of my favorite ones. Not a, underwater sea diver
Well,
taking a
welder.
taking a welder, an underwater welder, after 5 years is going to be making $100,000 a year, plus health care, plus pension, plus vacations, and so there's a lot of money to be made in manufacturing today. And one of the big components that are needed to give students the drive to go into manufacturing, the uh, the adult parents need to have a better understanding of the value of their little Johnny going into manufacturing.
And Susie,
I'm sorry.
and also Susie or Joan. Now the women should have to think about it too.
Oh, I'm sorry, Joan. I forgot about Joan. Uh, they have a lot of money and they deserve it. Uh, they may not last a whole lifetime doing it, but they will have good pensions, will have good health care, and so on. And Tim Grady and myself have been pushing and promoting this idea for quite a not quite as long as reshoring.
Okay. So I think we've had an interesting discussion. The forging industry is an important part of America. America couldn't exist as a country and as a military, et cetera, without forging. So it's absolutely essential. It's been a good career for Lew, and it sounds like for his employees, it's been very profitable and very rewarding for them. It's exciting to make things. You be responsible for making something real you can physically see and hold in your hand, something tangible, and there's a definite need there for workers. For example, high school graduates or others who don't know what they want to do and they're a bit older to apply to the industry, and I encourage them to do so because it's manufacturing is a great place.
Well, one of the really big points of forgings is that it's really a significant industry in regards to security and defense of our country.
Absolutely.
It's really big.
Yeah, without forgings, without steel, without machining, we'd be gone in a week.
That's about right. Right. So we enjoy the fact that it's a very stable industry, uh, and that it's something that's really very necessary.
So
Harry,
no,
what
no,
else? What else you got for us?
that's what I've got this time. We'll come up with something different for next time, but I thought this was interesting to try
Oh,
a
this
yeah.
this is great, and I'm really thrilled that you got my ad up there. That's all of you take down the phone number and the steelboard.com, and just remember about that. How about 8 to 10? They left the word mostly because it's 8 to 10 weeks. So give us a holler if you need a product problem. We'll be happy to help you out. Harry, this is really great. And for all the people that are listening, make sure that you click the button and the like button and so on and so forth. So that you can come back next week. And Harry, it's been a pleasure as always. And we'll see you next month.
Next month. Yeah. So are we still recording?
We are, and I'm going to say, Inara, we're about to shut down. Harry, if I don't by the end of the month of December, which I probably will, have a holiday, a good end of the year, and thank you for joining and making your contribution to Manufacturing Talk Radio. Thank you.
Best to you and yours, Lew. Bye bye.
Thank you. Bye bye now.
I'm just wild about Harry